This is a borrowed camera, so don't anybody get used to this. Hey, what's up? Hello, I hope you all are doing well. In keeping with tradition of this year, I am doing my best to make these quarterly wrap-up videos. And as we have just come into October and September has ended and we've got one more left, this is going to be all of the books that I've read in quarter 3. So that is July, August, and September of this year. And I will say there are more than in quarter 2. So I'm impressed with myself and somehow I was able to get through all of them. There are 10 books in total. I'm very excited to talk about some of them and less excited to talk about others. So let's make a start. Firstly is a book that I read with my book club. Or should I say I asked my book club to read. It is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oinkon Braithwaite. And this was super. It was not exceptionally long. It was very well done. It brought up a lot of questions for us around what would you do if your sister seemed so unconcerned with people that she had killed. Lots of great questions in this book. Really nice and compact with a lot of things to really like pick through and sort through ethically. So super book. Highly recommend. So if you belong to a book club, maybe try this one. It's also, like I said, it's not exceptionally long, and that's one thing that my book club gets angry at me for, is for picking books that are just a little too long. So if you're looking for like a really tight read, this is the one. So next I read a book called Hot Comb, which is actually a graphic novel by Ebony Flowers, or should I say Dr. Ebony Flowers, because this blossomed out of some doodles that she had been doing and comics she had been making when she was studying and working on her PhD. So this story is about the author's experience with being an African-American girl growing up in a society that didn't always accept her particular kind of hair and the kind of hair that she wanted, and her family's ideas around what kind of hair she should have. All of that comes together in this. It's really detailed. A lot of the sort of opening chapter pages are really detailed with all kinds of marketing pieces from different hair products from the time. It's a really lovely look. Her sister features in the book quite a bit as well. Definitely worth checking out, especially if you are demographically unlike the author. I think it's a really nice insight. Following that, I continued on in my quest to read through all of the 44 Scotland Street series that I began earlier this year. Bertie Plays the Blues is the 7th book in the series. I've talked about them a lot in these wrap-up videos that I've been doing this year. I don't want to say they're all the same, but they're pretty much all the same. There is a set cast of characters that doesn't really change. You don't always see all of them to the same extent book to book, but it is always written in that very sort of serialized Sunday column type of style. The original book was a collection of stories, and it was a serial in The Scotsman, which is a newspaper in Scotland. And Bertie Plays the Blues follows Bertie, who is sort of everyone who reads this series' favorite character. He's a 6-year-old boy with a really overbearing mother, and he's just a wonderful kid, and he plays the saxophone, and he is indeed playing the blues because he doesn't get to do anything he wants to do. He has to live up to his mother's expectations for what a 6-year-old boy should be. This one, like the others, they're all lovely. I rank them all the same. They're all 3 stars for me, but I am indeed continuing on with this series. My last book of July was the 3rd book in a mystery series, which is actually quite popular, and I hadn't realized when I started reading it in December, I think it was, December of 2018. We read the first book with the book club before I got to take over the leadership of it, and this is the 3rd. It's called Miss Copp's Midnight Confessions. The Copp sisters were real sisters. This is historical fiction. Who lived in New Jersey, I believe in like the 1930s and 40s, and Constance Copp became America's first female deputy sheriff. And so Miss Copp's Midnight Confessions is written in a different style than the previous 2 books. There's a little bit of shifting of perspective, which I did not enjoy. I did not enjoy the way that this was different, written differently from the other books. I think she should have just kept the tone the same. I see why she did it. It was useful to the narrative in this particular story to get both sides of that retelling, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the previous 2. So it was a nice follow-up, but definitely not my favorite. From there we moved into August, and I began August with The Ensemble by Asia Gabel. This is another book that I asked my book club to read. I've done a whole review of it. If you want to check that out, you very well can. If you like Meg Wolitzer's The Interestings, this is the same sort of idea. If you've followed us for long enough now, you'll know that I cannot seem to get myself to read The Interestings, even though it's been recommended to me several times over and over. I got 100 pages in earlier this year and definitely put it down and have meant to come back to it and have not. So what does that say? This I enjoyed a lot more, mostly because it had a performing arts bent to it that I was interested in reading. It was nice. My book club also enjoyed this, so if you are looking for another book club book after you read My Sister the Serial Killer, I think that this is a good choice. So in August I moved on to the fourth Kopp Sisters novel, which is Miss Kopp Just Won't Quit, which is a title that I really, really like. And this switches back to the original style of the first two books, which I appreciated. If it had been another set of like multiple perspectives, I don't know if I would have made it through this book. But this is very different. There's a lot more sort of a political atmosphere in this one. Lots of things going on. I hope there's going to be a fifth book because this left it in a setup for a very interesting new turn. I have not done enough research to see if Amy Stewart is writing a fifth book, but I would hope that she would be, because this has so far been a really great series. It has gotten a lot of buzz that I have been unaware of until I started reading them and was like, oh wow, people really like these books. And so hopefully there will be a fifth one, but if not, this actually would be a really good stopping place if there were just to be 4 in this series. Also in August, I finished Lisa Taddio's 3 Women, which is a nonfiction book that reads like 3 fictitious narrative stories, but all of it is true. It's based on considerable amounts of research. Lisa Taddeo is a journalist, and she has followed these 3 women for many, many years and collected their stories with evidence that's also in public record about the things that happened to them. It's a story, like I said, of female desire and the different forms that takes, which is not something that we're traditionally made aware of or have not been up until recent years, and how important that is in a narrative of any kind. This was a difficult book to get through. I think it's a really important book, though. This type of perspective sharing is something that is more needed. And I would certainly put a trigger warning on this book. Be careful going into it, definitely. Maybe check out a synopsis to see if that's the kind of content that you want to get into before you dive in. So next we get into the books that I read in September, and the first of which is Looking for Alaska by John Green, which is actually the only book of his that I don't own, which is unusual. However, I picked this up because the Hulu series is coming out very soon, and I wanted to refresh this in my mind of exactly what the story is, because I remember it well, but I wanted to pick out the different details, and I remember a lot of the characters that are not the main character being really funny, and I was not wrong. I was glad to go back and read this again. I forgot how unhappy half of this book is. It's just sort of morose. So it'll be interesting to look at this in conjunction with the way that they're going to portray it for television. Our September book club book was Taylor Jenkins Reads The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I know is quite popular here on BookTube, and I can see why. I'll have a review of this coming soon as well. This is a fantastic story, which was not my feeling in the first 25 or so pages. I was like, no, what are we doing here? But it got very good very quickly. Really enjoyed it. Evelyn is a fascinating character. We had a lot of fun picking her apart in my book group. Definitely highly recommend. I think I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And there were some pieces of it that I was like, about, just like that. And I'll do a full review so you can hear more of my thoughts if you would like to. And lastly was Where'd You Go Bernadette by Maria Semple. I read this book in 2015. I think I did a review on it. You'll notice that the camera quality is even worse than normal, and certainly worse than compared to this. But I wanted to read this again given that the film just came out. I have not seen the movie yet, but I am going to try to. I saw Olive from A Book Olive do a book to movie comparison that I found really interesting, and so I was like, yeah, I should go get this. I'll link her video below. But I should go get this. And so I did. I enjoyed it, I think, more the second time around than I did when I initially read it. And so I might do a little re-review of that here as well, if I'm feeling so inclined. And that's it. Those are the 10 books that I read in the third quarter. My goal for quarter 4 is to really try and get to 60 books of the year, which means I need to read another 20 books before the end of the year. So 20 books in the next 3 months, which sounds daunting and I'm not sure I'm going to do it, but we will see. If you've read any of these or have particular thoughts on them or would like to know more, please do tell me down in the comments. I'd love to chat about it. Other than that, everything about us that you want to know is in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having lovely weeks and lovely lives, and we'll see you very soon.